Apparently, if you're a cybersecurity influencer or educator, you're just a glorified charlatan. You know better than those Minecraft streamers on Twitch, except you're streaming cyber nonsense to corporate kiddos. How dare you, harumph and such. What is up, my trunk slamming friends? First Spicy Monday of 2025. We're kicking the year off with a bang, or should I say with a blast, because it looks like the cyber security influencer community is under fire. I know, clutch your pearls. Apparently, over on Reddit, there was quite the thread that popped up about a week ago, going in and absolutely trashing the cybersecurity influencer and content creation space. Over 600 comments, a ton of opinions thrown around. We had voices of reason from Tom Lawrence and John Hammond in there trying to calm people down, and otherwise just a whole bunch of perspectives. The TLDR, if you're a cybersecurity expert out there and you make content, video, audio, podcast, text content, whatever, apparently it's time to find a new gig. Nobody wants to hear from you anymore. You're terrible. You're all full of shit. My personal opinion, I would suggest you all pivot to being AI influencers. It seems to be the other hotbed of people who are frequently accused of having no idea what the fuck they're talking about. So you should go over there. If we pull up the thread for a second, and I'll link to it so that you can go read it on your own. There are a ton of comments on here, ranging anywhere from the comments at the top that I think most of us would agree with, like this one, tons of people on LinkedIn shilling courses to become cloud or security engineers with a six-figure salary with no experience, which is where I think this whole post started, was with that spirit, all the way to just scroll through people picking on individual cybersecurity influencers and just fucking roasting them and claiming that they're charlatans and have no, credibility or reason to be posting. And this then devolved into it's all clickbait and yada, yada, yada. You guys can read the whole thread yourselves. I'm not going to read it to you. I want to kind of take this as an opportunity to challenge a thought, because this is not, despite what it might seem like, this is not an issue about cybersecurity education. This has to do with education around any niche area. Are we sure that the influencers are the problem, or are they playing by the content rules that we have all basically set for them and keep feeding into it? And is it actually problematic? I am not a cybersecurity expert. I know enough to be dangerous. I would not trust me to be in charge of your firewall. I watch The Lockpicking Lawyer because it's entertaining and I enjoy all the locks. I am not going to learn to pick a lock. I will, however, install your lock. Point being, I am not a cybersecurity expert, and I am in no position to go around and judge individual people's credibility to say or not say the things they are saying outside of basic common sense and, general competency. So I say all of that because I think the original spirit of how this post got started is something we could all agree with. There are folks who position themselves as possessing the keys to the kingdom, and if you pay them or otherwise engage with them, they and they alone are the only ones that can teach you how to do a thing and be successful in that thing. From that standpoint, I wouldn't limit this to cybersecurity. I would say any influencer or really any personality that takes that stance, that their method is the only method, and the only way you can get their method is by paying them to get that method. And we add on that it is presented in that predatory sort of MLM style methodology. Yes, fine. Without knowing anything about the content they are producing, I would agree that's probably charlatan behavior. End of post. Great move forward. But that's not what this thread turned into, and that's not what I thought was interesting to talk about today. This thread turned into really an open essay from the cybersecurity community on how frustrated they are with the current state of influencing and content creation around their space. And it's amusing to me because, first of all, it's the exact same set of complaints. If you replace the word cybersecurity and insert any other subject, you will hear in that subject's forum. And it's also really, really fucking stupid. In today's world where we are always connected and have multiple forms of media, unfortunately or fortunately, no matter how you want to look at it, content is king. And if you want to get noticed, you need views. And to get views, you have to play by the algorithm's game. And right away, I bring this up because this is something I've had to learn over the last year. I like making edutainment videos on fairly advanced concepts. And I learned early on that if I wanted to try and explain advanced concepts in MSP and business operations, and by advanced, I don't mean that the idea, any particular subject I talk about is particularly complex. It's the implementation, the methodology, the psychology, and the experience behind implementing it in a more advanced way. Well, here's the problem with content like that. First of all, it's boring. Second of all, you already have to be an expert in that area to understand references, inside jokes, and things that would make it less boring. Third, it's boring. Fourth, your audience is like 7 people in whatever your niche is. No algorithms want that. If your end goal is for people to see it or hear it, then they won't. Right away, I think that is unfortunately where a lot of people in this thread got upset. And they're not upset because of the cybersecurity. They're upset for the same reason that some of you would get upset in the 80s and 90s that your favorite band was now on the radio, or that some people, like me, get upset that all the kids now watch anime when I got my ass beat for doing that in the 80s, back when that wasn't cool. I earned my anime. What the fuck, everybody? It's just on regular TV and bookstores now. That feeling, that's what I posit actually has a lot of people upset here. If you think about it, we all like that idea of a small niche creator. You find somebody whose style, their voice, their messaging, whatever they're doing really resonates with you, and you want to watch more of that. And when they eventually discover the right way to utilize the algorithm of the platform they like to try and expand their audience, in many cases, they will lose a subset of their original viewers that like them as they were. And it's important to remember that, unfortunately, you likely don't represent the entire viewer base as well as you think you do. This conversation is actually really funny to have in this context because it dovetails to the same problem that the majority of the IT channel has as it, in regards to MSPs and MSPs have, which is a complete lack of ability to really understand the sample size and the ICP of who's going to buy from you. There is more of that than there are MSPs and vendors who do know how to market and sell. This is a common problem in this space of not understanding that your perspective, your view, and your lived experience are not summation of the totality of everybody around you. And your lack of awareness of the total population sample of who's around you does not equate to you're smarter or better than them. I'll give you an example. I love watching woodworking videos. I've talked about this before. I'm an amateur woodworker. There's a guy whose YouTube I've been watching for years. I really liked him. Good content. About a year ago, he figured out the algorithm for his viewer base to explode his channel in growth by like 3x, which is awesome. Congratulations for him. He went from like 90,000 subscribers to, a couple hundred pretty much overnight. But now every video he puts out is one of those thumbnails where his face looks really shocked. The title is always, "This tool is a game changer in the woodworking industry." And it's very sensationalized. And the level of technical speak in the video went from sort of like intermediate to my first time holding a screwdriver. For me, I don't really watch his videos anymore. Still subscribe to the channel, but I don't watch his videos anymore. And I suspect that a lot of his original viewers from that original 90,000 viewers, probably half of them don't watch the videos that much anymore. An additional 200-something thousand people do. And I use this as an example because I can be right that I no longer really like the content, and that creator can be right that he wasn't making content that appealed to the best audience. And so I think that's important to remember on the internet, that you are not the only viewer. It's nice when we feel like we are. It's nice when things feel like they were built for us, but they're not. When you think of the amount of work that these creators have to put in, which was pointed out on this forum, some people were saying, oh, don't they have a full-time job? Which, first of all, yes, they do. And normal, healthy people have 40 to 50-hour full-time jobs in this industry. Fucking psychopaths have 80-hour-a-week jobs. So if you have an 80-hour-a-week job and you can't fathom how someone has any time for hobbies or loved ones, you're either an entrepreneur or you're a fucking moron. If you're an employee and you're doing that, you're stupid. If you're an entrepreneur and you're doing that, you're stupid, but you got to learn that on your own. Point being that a lot of these people like me make this in their off time, on their own time. It is a lot of work, though. I do give you that. And so when you think about it, with all the work it takes, the scripting, recording, editing, publishing, graphics, all that horse shit, you do kind of want an ROI on your time. And so it is understandable that at some point, a lot of these creators are going to pivot in a direction that gets them the most engagement and views and interaction. And generally speaking, that means not for experts. It's for beginners and intermediate level people, since by definition, you can't all be experts. And there's a small number of experts, and then most of us sit beneath that. So if I'm making content on a particular subject with the goal of increasing expertise, I'm not going to make it for other fucking experts. I'm going to make it for people who are on their journey to expertise. If you're in any niche and you don't understand this concept, you're not an expert. I'm sorry. Like if hearing me say this upsets you and you're like, no, that's content needs to be made for me, the smart people. You don't get that educational content is not made for actual experts. It's made for folks on their journey to expertise, because actual experts have other forums they will use to share and consume expertise with their peers. You're not in those forums because you're not an expert yet. And if that has hurt you on this Monday, I'm sorry to real talk you on a Monday. This has been a free therapy session. Yes, I'm sorry. You're not actually at the plateau of your career yet. Back in the day on hacker forums and BBS, we typically had three types of people that made content. In that case, walls of text. We had the super technical, but for lack of a better term, I'll call them socially awkward, who didn't understand how to make content for everyone else in the forum. We had those folks who were overconfident but clueless. They were just cresting Mount Stupid on the Dunning-Kruger curve. They did not yet know what they didn't know. They thought they were experts. All of us have been this person, just not all of us vocalize being this person publicly. And then the ones that we really like, those are the people that were so experienced and knowledgeable, they could explain things simply. That last group, that's who made the biggest impact. And in most of the cases, the majority of the cybersecurity influencers in this thread that were actually getting called out, they fall into that last group. They're people that have enough experience or knowledge where they actually can break shit down simply for regular people. Part of the other critique that was a really important part of this thread, which is the part that I'm least qualified to speak on from a cybersecurity standpoint, but that's not going to stop me today, was that a lot of these people, and if a lot of these people who are cybersecurity influencers are giving out bad or damaging advice. And if we dig into the comments a little further, beyond the handful of people that are probably fairly and rightly being called out as charlatans or are being predatory, what most of the posters are saying is that everybody who's an influencer is giving out advice that is not technically correct or is not the most bestest of practice, and therefore it is harmful. In an absolute black and white vacuum, I agree with you. There typically is one ultimately or penultimately best way to do something until we discover a better way. And it would be awesome if we could simply explain to everybody the most perfect execution, whatever they're trying to do. But you should recognize while I say that sounds incredibly narcissistic, egomaniacal, and I don't know, like kind of like you're a fucking prick if you talk that way. And if you think about it for a minute, with advice specifically, context is really important. And we leave that out sometimes on the internet and our rush to be, all enraged about something. Bad advice can be dangerous, but before you slam someone for bad advice, you got to kind of take a step back and look at the full picture. Not everyone has the same resources or knowledge. I too have opinions on people in the space, especially around operations and business and MSP process, that I feel give out bad advice, that I think should shut the fuck up and are in no position to be talking about what they're saying. But I don't publicly go post that. And first of all, because I'm not a shit goblin, but secondly, because I understand context. Now, this is something I think the cybersecurity professional industry really struggles with. I have noticed it throughout my career. It is still at a point where defensiveness around protecting the sort of inheld culture and internal best practices and quality of contact overrides the appreciation that not everybody's in the fucking inner circle. It reminds me a lot of small groups of people that liked a niche music artist and will get really fucking defensive of you if you excitedly come over and you're like, oh, you're into so-and-so? Hey, I like this other band, which to me sounds very similar. You know, the kind of person, you get mad and you be like, they're not like that at all. You don't understand. And you go on a 40-minute lecture to you about all these incredibly niche, nuanced differences that no normal person would notice. And if we took a step back and were rational, a normal person would be like, yeah, band A is very similar to band B. I would put them in the same, bucket, in the same concert together. But if we think about advice in general, it's not a cybersecurity problem itself. We think about advice context in general. I'll go back to woodworking. If I am trying to cut difficult, dense, large sheet goods, so let's say a inch-thick piece of MDF, everybody would agree, if I asked anyone in any form of the industry who does that, the absolute safest way to possibly go about doing that, really the best practice for quality of cut, speed, efficiency, and safety, there's really only one major way to do that. You need a oversized, incredibly sturdy bench with bench dog holes. You need about $2,000 in clamps. You need a track saw, or if you can afford it, an entire CNC table. You need to have proper dust extraction equipment because any sort of chip creation from cutting will decrease the efficiency and safety of the cutting. There's basically like $15,000 to $20,000 worth of equipment because that bench dog table, anyone here who's into woodworking who's going to brush that off, that's like a $5,000 fucking woodworking table. And all of that stuff requires a whole bunch of experience and knowledge with setup and use case. Normal people, even normal experts, don't have all of that. So if I were to watch a woodworking video where somebody was simply explaining how to cut that same sheet good with a $100 circular saw from Home Depot and a straight edge, and I were to say, and a couple of, bar clamps, and I were to be like, that's not best practice, that's not safe, that person's a charlatan, how dare you teach people like that? Well, but most people who are going to cut sheet goods don't have a $20,000 setup and 20 years of experience in their fucking shop. So what might be best practice in a vacuum is not actually useful. The context there says, why don't I teach people how to do it the best and safely they can with what they have available? And you'll notice a lot of these influencers in the cybersecurity space, that's what they are doing. At whatever level they are teaching towards, they're trying to teach that level of person how to arrive at something that is pretty darn close to best practice with what they have available. Yes, objectively, on any niche, if we zoom out, is that as good as the best as possible practice? No, of course it fucking isn't. But if you don't have that context available and you cannot understand that, I can understand then why you get mad at some of these people. And I would also point out, you don't know as much as you fucking think you do. Because somebody who is an actual expert in something will have awareness and context on the totality of that something. And if you don't have that because you think there's only one way to do it and it's the best way, that means you don't actually know what you're doing. And I know that's really shocking, and it's the second time I've said it in this video, but I think some people need to hear that. You're not as good at, as learned at, as smart at, or as objectively all-encompassing at whatever it is you think you are. None of us are. No one is. And once you have that light bulb moment, you can take a step back and say, oh, maybe this particular video wasn't made for me. Or you could say, and this is what I prefer to do, this doesn't seem like it was made for me, but it's on a subject I like. Let me watch it and see if I can learn something I didn't know about. Which is the exact same advice I give to all of you that go to trade shows and claim that all the sessions were shit and you got nothing from them. Get fucked. I've been to those shows. I've met you folks. You need to be in those sessions. None of you know everything. And if we want to go by the most simple delineator, prove it to me with the size, scale, and maturity of your business. 3% of all the MSPs in our space are at a level where I would take that comment from them. Otherwise, shut the fuck up. Go back to your lemonade stand. I understand that not every influencer, creator, or content maker is going to be for everybody. And I also understand that we have an obligation within any industry to do a little bit of policing to keep things from getting too sloppy and dirty. On the flip side of things, while we're doing that, we also have to be careful we don't create an echo chamber. I think everybody can agree to all of those concepts. So I don't necessarily have an issue with how this thread started, with this idea of saying, is there anybody who is basically overclaiming credibility for something that they cannot demonstrate or hiding behind? I get it. I get that not everybody making content should be making the content they are making, even if we take into account everything I have said in this video. Welcome to the world. There are going to be people who say and do shit that you don't like. You have a choice. You can be a shit goblin and complain about it on Reddit and some thread anonymously, or you can fucking step up to the plate and fix it. You can make some content. You could help. And I don't see a lot of you helping. To all the people who like to get on and complain, complaining is easier than doing things. I get it. I'm a complainer myself. I just want you to consider something. Is this the most constructive way to see that change and that agency happen within your niche? For cybersecurity experts, would it be nice if the entire industry just fucking woke up and started following best practices? Of course it would be. But then you'd be out of a job. So I'd like to point out, if everybody knew what they were doing, they wouldn't fucking need you. If everybody knew how to do it right, they wouldn't need you. And the point is, everybody's never going to know how to do it right because things are dynamic. They shift, they grow. Actual experts, actual people with passion shift and grow along with it. And so it is our job and our duty to make it better, to educate, and to pass that information down to other people. We should not be protecting that. There should not be a sense that I had to take a beating because I liked anime in the 80s and 90s when no one knew what it was. And so fuck these kids now where anime is mainstream. Am I allowed to throw a slightly judgmental eye at some of the tripe that's on TV now? Abso-fucking-lutely. I did my time. And just as you are with anything else, I am allowed to be a little bit judgmental and avoid things that I think are trashy now. Does that suddenly mean I'm the only one, or my generation's the only generation entitled to like anime or video games or pop culture? No, it's fucking stupid. And it's that same mentality. That can't be what happens to your industry, cybersecurity people. You cannot gate down knowledge and decide that there was one way to learn it, one way to practice it, and one way to grow in it. There are many, many, many ways to arrive to the top of the mountain of expertise. And if you really want to be an agent of change, create another fucking pathway up that mountain. Because otherwise, you're just a complainer. You're doing nothing. And you're just proving my point that you don't actually know what the fuck you're talking about. I hope you all have a very spicy 2025. Let's make this entire year about constructive criticism and better content. How about y'all step up to the fucking plate? Stay spicy, everybody. See you next week.